Welcome, everybody, to this month's edition of the Classic Horrors Club podcast companion. I'm Jeff Owens from classichorrors.club.
And I'm Richard Chamberlain from monstermoviekid.wordpress.com.
We are here deep in the swamps of Florida because our first movie takes place there. And it is one of two movies we're going to be doing that fall under the umbrella of natural horror or eco horror. Richard, you want to tell everybody what we're watching?
Well, we are watching Frogs from 1972 and Day of the Animals from 1977.
Yes, and this is a genre that I put and subgenre that I particularly love. I saw Frogs in the theater when it was first released. I have memories of that, and I love it every time I watch it more and more. I am using as a resource for both of these movies a book called Massacred by Mother Nature, exploring the natural horror film. It's by Lee Gambin. This is a very good book. Lee does a lot of discussion on the umbrella genre and the subgenres because really natural horror goes way back to giant bug movies. You know, it's any animal, anything from nature, plant movies. Day of the Triffids could be considered a natural horror movie. We are focusing on the ecological horror, and the difference between it and a lot of the other movies of this time are that all animals, different forms of nature, are the antagonists in this versus a movie like Willard or The Birds, where it's just one species. So that makes these two movies in particular unique. And then my other source is just a brilliant treatise on the movie Frogs. It is from a book called Unsung Horrors, and it is written by some character named Jeff Owens. So that
I'm going to intercede and say that
yes.
these are great books. They come from We Belong Dead, and it's just one of several that you've participated in. And they are, I know times right now, getting these books, paying the shipping costs, getting them from overseas might be a little pricey, but let me tell you, they are fantastic books. They are jam packed with great articles or reviews of the films, full color. They're great, great to look at visually for one thing. Again, with a lot of illustrations, and so I even if Jeff wasn't part of these, I would recommend these books. These are great books, and they're heavy. There's a lot packed into every book. So whoever this Jeff Owens character is, he's definitely put himself into a good book.
Yeah, I think he's a trustworthy source for sure. So
Absolutely.
I've told you a little bit my first viewing of Frogs, and then Day of the Animals. You'll soon learn not quite as high on as Frogs. Richard, what's your previous experience watching either of these movies?
Well, with Frogs, I actually thought originally this was my first time viewing, but then I listened to an old review I did of Night of the Lepus, and once I watched Frogs, I was kind of like, I have seen this before, but there's parts of the film that I remember, parts that I don't. I must have been multitasking when I watched it originally. So I really almost consider this like a first time viewing for me because I really absorbed the film proper this time. And, you know, for a first time viewing, I watched it via Svengoolie. So that was kind of a nice way of getting a chance to watch the movie and get some fun little tidbits that Svengoolie throws along the way, which he always gives you some trivia and runs through the cast, and does some fun stuff. And I'm pretty sure that what I saw was uncut. Maybe a few scenes might have been shaved for time, but there's really nothing bad, I don't think, in Frogs from a violence or language perspective. I enjoyed it. I really did. I think you enjoyed it a little more than I do,
Hmm.
but I really did enjoy this one. It's got a really fun cast. I love Sam Elliott, who plays the character of Pickett Smith. I love him in everything that he does. And Ray Milland is just he's the guy you just kind of love to hate. In this one, we did The Thing with Two Heads. I've seen him in a lot of other films, and he kind of just has this kind of crotchety old guy persona, but he's not an old guy. He's just kind of, he's an ass. And you kind of, it's like a lot of the characters in this film, you're not really sad to see them go. You're kind of cheering for nature Except when it comes, to Sam Elliott and he's getting attacked, then you're like, okay, Sam's his character, Pickett's the good guy. He's got respect for nature. The rest of the family, really clearly doesn't, but you're cheering for him. So it's kind of like sometimes you're cheering for nature, sometimes you're cheering against him as nature kind of gets out of control. And as you said, we get everything in this film. We've got alligators and turtles and we've got snakes and tarantulas and scorpions and frogs and butterflies. Yeah,
Hmm.
we could have gotten as if you listen to the show, we talk about the scene that was and thankfully ended up not being in the film. There was originally a giant butterfly was going to be seen, and I think we were both thankful that that didn't happen because that would have been, I think, a little too comical for the film.
Yeah, so that's a good reminder. Full podcast available on SoundCloud and wherever you find fine podcasts.
Suppose nature gave a war and everybody came. The snakes, the birds, the lizards and frogs. And suppose that the polluters, the species on Earth called man, were the enemy in that war.
I still believe man is master of the world.
And then suppose that the human race lost. Ray Milland, Sam Elliott, Joan Van Ark, Adam Rourke, Judy Pace.
First of all, we're gonna have to try to find out our Stuart and Michael. To be very honest with you, I don't think we will. Not alive, anyway.
Keep talking, Peggy, because you're the only one making any sense around here.
But whether we find them or not, we've got to get off this damn island. All of us, now!
And I am asking to get the hell out of here with someone or by myself.
Technically, the first death, although we really don't see it on camera, I think is Grover, the exterminator. Pickett Smith finds him laying kind of face down in the swamp, and he's been killed by snakes. You just assume that, oh, Grover, I guess, was kind of the antagonist in a way because he's the exterminator, right? So he's going in and is finding to exterminate the creatures, the snakes in particular. I guess you could say they were protecting themselves. Maybe that's a way to think of it, or maybe he was just there and they were there. We assume. Death number 2 being Michael shoots himself. Got some stock footage of him shooting some, I don't know, perhaps pheasant or whatever. I couldn't see what they were, but he's shooting some birds. Somehow he trips and shoots himself in the leg. Then he kind of lands in like this moss, and there's tarantulas who have apparently taken up residence in this weird moss. So the moss starts to fall down on him. It's like the tarantulas are throwing this moss, and it was almost like it was paralyzing him in a way. Then, of course, the tarantulas come down, and we have kind of a Kingdom of the Spiders moment here where not looking good for Michael, and the tarantulas get the best of him. Death number 3 was Ken. Ken goes into the hothouse and is killed by a poison gas that's apparently spilled by the geckos. Did they do it accidentally, or did they know that there was poison gas there? Nonetheless, it gets knocked over. And so what do when you're in a hothouse and you see gas rising up from the ground? You walk right into the gas and put your head in it, and then you start to suffocate. Doesn't end well for Ken, who essentially is asphyxiated by the poison gas, and that's the end of Ken. Okay, so death number 4. This was Iris. She was into butterflies, and she has her net, and she's going off in search of a butterfly. She's just kind of in her own little world. She's fascinated by them, and she's like in search of this butterfly. She ends up getting killed in kind of a joint attack by some leeches and some snakes. She gets kind of tossed and turned around, and she's just running and screaming and goes into the swamp. Comes up and she's got leeches on her. And then there's snakes, an assortment of snakes. Cannons to the left of me, cannons to the right of me. I mean, there's snakes in the front, snakes in the back, there's snakes over here. Iris was not really a bad person. She was kind of just there.
This is my favorite scene. I remember this scaring me the most when I originally saw it. When she's inside looking at her butterfly and she says, "This is the biggest butterfly I've seen," you're kind of trained so far to know, okay, she's going to die by butterfly. Well, how is that going to happen? Oh, anything you're afraid of is probably in this movie. I mean, we know people are afraid of snakes. They're afraid of spiders. You know, I don't know about some of these. You know, I don't know if you're afraid of leeches, but there's something in here to make you just go, ugh.
Death number 5, we have Stuart. He gets killed by alligators in the mud. There was a moment where he's kind of like almost kind of tossing and turning. You know, I kind of like, oh, he's pulling a Tarzan. He's going to twist and turn. The next 3 deaths that we have are implied. We assume that they're dead, but we don't really see them die. And that would be Charles, Maybelle, and Bella. They all agree they're going to get off the island and they're going to get on the boat with Clint. He's going to take them across. They get to the other side of the lake. Yeah, there's nobody there. Clint goes looking for whoever's supposed to be on the other side. Meanwhile, Charles, Maybelle, and Bella, they have their suitcases and they go walking off. They see a campfire that is still going. There's still food cooking. I guess it's kind of implied the birds played a part maybe in their death. Last we see of them, they're kind of walking off towards a shed, and then you see some birds fly down. And then that's kind of it. And we don't really see what happened to them. The only other thing we see later on is their suitcases have been kind of opened and some clothes are strewn. Clint's the next one. He gets killed by a cottonmouth snake. The boat has ended up going out and he has to jump in the lake to swim back to the boat, which that's not going to end well because then you see some snakes slithering along and that's the end of him. He gets his.
I wondered what that snake was. I don't know what a cottonmouth snake is, and I don't know what a water moccasin is, and it could be a regional thing, but I wondered if that was a water moccasin, because that snake could just swim on top of the water.
Death number 7 or death number 10, depending on how you're keeping track again, would be Jenny. She was Clint's wife. I think she witnesses Clint's death. She gets killed by an alligator snapping turtle. Okay, I guess that can happen.
You could use your imagination a little bit too, because she stepped down into the water, didn't her feet get stuck in the mud, so she couldn't leave. I noticed this for the first time ever when I've watched this. After she's dead, I saw something on her. Were there crabs crawling on her?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't catch that.
This is a very interesting ecological pocket where there's all kinds, scorpions to alligators to turtles to...
My God.
Then meanwhile, you've got Jason left alone, and that's the way he wants it. He wants to be left alone. He's going to go take a nap upstairs. Then this is where the frogs come into play. The invasion of the frogs. They're going to get their revenge on Jason.
Quiet, Colonel.
For people that just can't accept the fact that frogs are a threat, what if that room wasn't filling up with frogs? What if he was literally driven crazy by all the croaking? They show all the heads of the animals that we assume he's hunted. We didn't realize that he was a big game hunter and another assault on nature.
Colonel.
Zooming in and out of their heads and all of that, and the croaking, and him having, I guess, a heart attack. I like that sort of, if you really think it could be ambiguity.
Technically, we do have one more shot. At the end of the credits,
Mm-hmm.